it's not just our emotions, it's literally our cognitive processing of information. The cues we attend to, the cues we remember, the cues that are stored in our brains. Which aspect of the infidelity produces the greatest jealousy among those who have actually experienced an infidelity? So these are people who have suffered through their partner being unfaithful. Men are more likely to be upset by the sexual aspects of the infidelity, women by the emotional aspects of the infidelity. And I'm not going to go through all these others, but there's just a whole raft of studies that I talk about in several of my books that document these fundamental sex differences. Now, mate guarding tactics range from vigilance to violence. So jealousy is an emotion, but it produces behavior as a consequence. In other words, you don't just sit there and have steam come out of your ears, although some people, I guess, do. It often motivates people to do something to prevent that strategic interference. And one of those things is mate guarding. And you might just become more vigilant. You might just suspect your partner. You might start snooping through your partner's mail, hack into your partner's email account, eavesdrop, get your friends to follow, beat up the other guy. Men do a lot of different things. And we've done studies of married couples where we've looked at what predicts the intensity of this kind of mate guarding action. And what we find is, I'm just going to actually give you the summary here because I want to get to one other topic, which is the aftermath of a breakup. But this is the summary of our findings. That for both sexes, if they perceive that the partner might be unfaithful, they ratchet up the intensity of their mate guarding. You can think about it this way. Each of us has a finite amount of time and energy to allocate to different adaptive problems. And so you can't guard your mate 24 hours a day. You have to do other things like eat and work and, claw your way up the status hierarchy. So, but when should you ratchet up your mate guarding is when you face the adaptive problem. And so when you perceive that there's an infidelity likely, that's when you should crank up your level of mate guarding. Also, what we found is that for men who are married to women who are physically attractive and younger are more likely to devote more effort, more time to mate guarding. And conversely, women who are married to men who are higher in status or have higher incomes, they devote more effort to the problem of mate guarding. Mate poaching tactics, the only thing I want to say about this is this is a very interesting phenomenon, but basically what we find is that mate poaching is very common, not just in the United States, but worldwide. And you can see why this might be the case, and that is that attractive, desirable individuals are typically snapped up quickly. And what that means is that they're taken out of the mating market, and so individuals are often attracted to those who are already in existing relationships because these are often attractive, desirable people. And so what we ask people, have you ever attempted to poach on someone else's mate, either for a short-term sexual encounter or for a long-term relationship? And what we find is, yeah, a lot of people have. Have you ever been in a relationship, someone tries to poach you out of that relationship? Yep, most people say, yeah. Have you ever been successfully poached away from a relationship? Well, more men than women here. Most of that's for short-term. Men are more easily lured away for short-term encounters. But anyway, the key point is not the exact numbers here, but just that mate poaching is quite common. And my colleague and former student David Schmidt has replicated this in 53 different cultures, and we basically find that they bounce around a lot. Some cultures have less mate poaching, some have more, but mate poaching is common in all. Okay, last topic, sexual conflict in the aftermath of a breakup. You think, okay, finally, geez, I finally went through this long process and now I can relax. I'm rid of this person. Well, you're not always rid of the person. Okay, stalking as a mating strategy. Now, we think of stalking. Now, stalking is something I'm not recommending. It's in fact illegal in this state and in every state in America. Stalking laws got onto the books in the early 80s, and it is illegal. So don't do it. But we've been studying and we found that it's astonishingly common. Restraining orders are just another way of saying I love you. Okay, stalking is one of these examples of a triadic antagonistic conflict where you have a former mate, and this is a very common context in which stalking occurs. You have a former mate who's gotten dumped, that's the former mate, who becomes a stalker, and you have a new potential mate that, let's say this is a woman and that's a guy, she has dumped him, but that other guy's now interested. Okay, but there's a problem, and that's the stalker. And the stalker drives a wedge between both of them because he inflicts a cost on her for any attempts to remate, and from this guy's perspective, it's a cost on him. You know, it freaks him out. You know, he says, "Oh, look, I really like you, but there's this guy parked outside your apartment 24 hours a day, glaring at me. You know, so call me when you get rid of your stalker." So basically, it's a strategy which is in some ways brilliant, and I don't mean to compliment stalkers, but it's effective in driving a wedge between these two individuals. And in our studies, we've done studies of about 2,500 stalking victims, and what we find is that most stalkings are mating related. This is just an example of one of the women in our study. This is a woman who said she was stalked by her ex-boyfriend. She says, "I broke up with him and he couldn't handle it. He felt like he owned me or controlled me, and when I made decisions such as this, he would just snap." And she said, "I could not date anyone anymore because he would get mad and he would try to fight the other guy." This woman said after 6 months, she started dating him again because there were no other guys around. She had beat them all back. Stalking can be directed toward, in our studies we found, to reobtain a new mate, to reobtain a prior mate, for mate poaching, and then for a few other things, mate interference and mate retention. Sometimes the stalking starts before the end of the relationship. Okay, that is in the male sense that there's something. I say males, 20% of stalkers are females, by the way, but 4 out of 5 stalkers are males. And sometimes they start stalking before the relationship ends. If he suspects that she's about to leave or might be unfaithful, he starts stalking her, and then she dumps him, and then the stalking continues. Very common kind of scenario. About a third of all stalking is triangle related. Aspiring mates and ex-mates are the most common, and victims sometimes give in to the demands of their stalkers. Victims sometimes date their stalkers, and some victims even have sex with their stalkers. More men than women, perhaps, again, not surprisingly. So here's how stalking works. Okay, my ex-boyfriend's girlfriend stalked me. She was crazy. She was obsessed with her ex-boyfriend, who was mine currently at the time. This is kind of jumbled here, but once she tried to run me off the road. This is a real case. Another time she chased me at extreme speeds down the highway with a gun in her car. She intentionally tried to run into me with the car. I filed police reports and tried to avoid her as much as possible. Okay, what could have pushed you over? This is from our homicide studies. What could have pushed her over the edge to kill you? If I would have stayed involved with my ex-boyfriend. She scared the hell out of me. After these incidents, I got out of the relationship. Well, the stalking worked. It was designed to scare her off, and it did precisely that. Okay, final topic, conflict and murder, and I only want to just say a couple things about it, and that is that homicidal ideation. How many people in this room have ever thought about killing someone? Even if just a fleeting thought. You just thought, I like that person dead. Okay, and the rest of you are liars. What we found is that homicidal fantasies are more common in men than in women, but women are not immune from them. And here's an example, mate poachers. If you're a mate poacher, you better be careful.